Does the media spread fake news? Well, I can say sometimes they do, and some media outlets do more than others. It's also quite obvious sometimes, such as this one. For anyone who doesn't know, the National Post is a Canadian conservative English language newspaper. Putting all their controversies aside, they are now an electronic paywall who sends news to their subscribers, which are just rebel media fans. But I can't believe that a conservative platform is going to bash their own country, which is, by the way, my country too. So if anyone doesn't know, back in the late 50s, the Royal Canadian Air Force built a supersonic interceptor jet called CF-105, more popularly named the Avro Arrow. At the time, it was highly developed and reached capabilities that other jets couldn't. Now, the controversy here is that our American friends weren't happy about an ally having superior weaponry, and so they bribed Prime Minister John Diefenbaker to cancel the program, and shortly after testing, the Arrow project was scrapped. Today, it's a part of Canadian pride, and some blueprints for the Arrow were secretly brought home, and in 2012, a Canadian aerospace industry, Bordeaux Industries, acquired them with supposed plans to resurrect the Arrow into a modern multi-role jet. Will this see the light of day? Only time will tell. But back to the National Post. Well, they actually claimed that the Arrow wasn't great. So I will test that, and I'm glad the majority of Canadians agree with me.
I have some bad news, Canada. The Avro Arrow, one of our proudest national symbols, coolest looking creations, and most vaunted aeronautic achievements, was okay.
I can't wait to hear this.
For starters, if it hadn't been cancelled, the CF-105 would have been hideously outdated when it entered service. The Arrow was an interceptor, a plane designed with one purpose: fly as fast as possible to the Arctic and shoot down Russian nuclear bombers. Pew, 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 pew.
I'm actually wondering if this guy is even Canadian. For starters, the Arrow was one of the first supersonic jets. It was a lot faster than other jets, and it would have been a lot better at shooting down a Soviet bomber. Let's not forget that it had delta wings, which would make it more agile and user-friendly, meaning it would have also been good for dogfights. You really didn't do your research, did you?
An interceptor doesn't really help if you've got missiles coming at you. And the Arrow can't really do much else. This is part of why nobody else except the RCAF wanted to buy it.
And this is not true. For starters, you know those high speeds I mentioned? Well, they would have helped a lot in evasive maneuvers. Second of all, you're wrong again. The United States and United Kingdom showed interest in the Avro Arrow, but their purchase was never concluded as the program was cancelled. The British TSR-2 was even based off the Avro Arrow, but was scrapped in 1964 for the exact same reason.
And it was a great plane, particularly for a small country like Canada.
A small country. Well, if the second biggest country in the world is a small country, I can think of another one that's even smaller.
Particularly for a small country like Canada,
but it wasn't an unbelievably great plane. The 50s were an exciting time for aircraft development, and while the Arrow was one of the world's fastest, the Brits, the Americans, the French, and the Swedes all had planes that kicked its butt in range, maximum altitude, and often cost. This is the US-made Delta Dart. It's a little bit slower than the Arrow and only has one engine to the Arrow's two, but it was about 1/4 the price, and was already flying when the Arrow was still on the drawing board.
Maybe you didn't hear the term supersonic. This is the age of the Cold War, where nukes were in use. This was the golden age of nuclear-capable bombers, and they would take the dominant role in the battlefield of the air. What's the purpose of a jet that can't even catch up to a bomber to take it out in time before your own country is nuked, just because another jet can fly higher or even be cheaper? Does cheaper really mean better? Would you place your security on something that doesn't fit your requirements?
Arguments lamenting the 1959 cancellation of the plane usually fixate on the fact that, sure, the Arrow may have been flawed, but Canada should have continued funding the program anyway in order to maintain our domestic aviation industry. Sound familiar?
Well, considering Bombardier's net income has been back up since 2016 and we're merging with Airbus, I think our own aircraft industry would do quite well. Now, considering that a partnership with Airbus could allow Canada's new fighter jet to be the Eurofighter Typhoon, it's quite easy to see a good age for our own industry. But considering that the National Post has some issues with patriotic confusion, they'd probably be attacking that too. But seriously, I've never seen a conservative media outlet attack their own country. It's quite sad, I have to say.